Hey guys, hello YouTubers out there. This one's going back to my man with the wolf pack, Tim Black. Man, I gotta say, you've impressed the heck out of me lately, Tim. I really appreciate your show. I've really enjoyed watching your commentary on the debates for a long time, and I've been cutting you slack because you're one of the casters that is telling it like it is for the most part, admittedly. But this is the third time out of your last three times you've covered my gal Tulsi that you have been really biased and narrow in your scope and the way that you've been covering her, dude. And I gotta say, you have made it on my minor poop list. And that's pretty impressive, dude. That's not a very long list. It is pretty hard to make it on that list. I'm a pretty, compassionate dude. But I gotta say, Tim, you kinda chapped me. You kinda made me mad, and it's not because I'm a rabid Tulsi Gabbard Russian troll bot. I'm gonna need you to address something, Tim. Because you're always saying you're trying to keep it real, and I don't think that your coverage of Tulsi Gabbard lately has been keeping it very real at all. I'm going to encourage you to watch this video that I've got linked down below for anybody who wants to, about the difference between what you're calling her out for and Medicare. She clarified. You're calling her out for clarifying. Because really, Tim, her policy hasn't changed. The issue is, so many people have been saying, well, you're talking about private insurance. You're not for Medicare for all if you're for private insurance. You're not for Medicare for all if you're for private insurance. She's for healthcare for all. She's for getting everybody access to free or affordable, even if you have nothing in your pocket. Make sure nobody goes broke for going to a hospital. Make sure even if you just lost your job, you don't go broke for going to a hospital. That is Medicare for all. That is universal health care. The issue is, she just recently, because so many people have been saying, you're talking about private insurance, Tulsi, so she decided to come up with her own lingo because everyone's saying, you can't say M4A if you're not M4A, you can't say M4A if you're not M4A. So she said Medicare choice. Personally, I just wrote him an email to say you should go with Medicare guarantee instead because it's much clearer, but really, yes, you are getting on her ass for clarifying, Tim. For doing exactly what you're asking her to do because, well, she wasn't very clear with her very clear language in the first debate, so she needed to be more clear. So she did that. Smear articles all across the news saying Tulsi's flip-flopping again from the position that she hasn't changed literally her whole campaign. I mean, before the first debate, there are sound bites, there are clips of her saying that every single developed country with universal health care has some form of private, it has some role for private insurance. Because it does, because that logically makes sense, because there will be naturally things that aren't covered that people will want to have covered. Works for me. Look at her record, look at who she's not taking money from to it. And this is the third time that the media hubbub, hullabaloo, whatever, headlines have been talking about how she's backed off Medicare for all when she really hasn't. So I'm going to really need you to issue a retraction on that because, quite frankly, this is your third strike where you have really covered this amazing candidate very disingenuously. And, I started watching you because you do great debate coverage and because you were repping Tulsi Gabbard. But, dude, I'm not sure if you're not, doing your research because you might be a busy guy, I get that. Or if you're just, not being entirely truthful. But it doesn't take much digging to figure out that you've really been kind of missing the mark on some of these, Tim. So, with that, I'm going to say that this is your third strike. You did the Biden thing, which, you can disagree with me on that all you want, but the fact of the matter is you did seriously miscover that one and never corrected the record on that. And the one that really got me, though, was the Dave Rubin thing. Holy crap, Tim. That was so just vile and disingenuous. And, even just thinking about who Tulsi Gabbard is and the kind of campaign she's been running, you can understand why she thinks that identity politics is damaging in our country. Because she's been identified as a right-wing supporter, neo, whatever, blah, blah, because everybody likes ice cream. Tim, it's basic. It's very simple. I like ice cream. Do you like ice cream? I don't know if you do, but most people, like ice cream. Let's just assume you do for the purposes of this thought experiment. If some, neo-fascist dude likes ice cream, does that mean you need to second guess the fact that you like ice cream or you need to, consider that you might be a whatever? No. It means that even an idiot can recognize that ice cream's delicious. And just because someone else agrees that ice cream is delicious doesn't mean that... But bottom line, identity politics is seriously damaging in our country's rhetoric. Right after watching your video where you called her out because, oh, she said identity politics is the biggest issue in America, and we know it's not. Tim, she knows it's not too. Do you hear her talking day and night about identity politics? No. Dave Rubin said, I think identity politics is the biggest issue in America, until he said, I agree that it's a big issue. She didn't say that, I think that realistically there is not a more important issue than we could talk about right now than that. She just said that it's an issue that is concerning because it is concerning. And you say, well, I can understand Dave Rubin having that opinion because he's a blah, 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 blah. Tulsi Gabbard has been dealing with the same crap. I mean, not the same crap, but bottom line, I mean, identify, absolutely, be proud of who you are, but just because someone else who, you know, is part of your group says you need to believe a certain way and say this person is awful, do your research before you just assume that that person's awful. I mean, like, that's a problem that America is suffering from right now, that we don't do enough of that. And she's highlighting that, and she's asking us to come together. She's not saying, you know, and then you start talking about how, you know, identity was not a problem when it was for the white man, and you said that, you know, you had a problem where you were being identified, you believed that the only thing that you could ever be was a construction worker. I don't remember your exact story, but it was something along those lines, Tim. And that is, again, identity being a problem. We are limited by these boxes. Like, we all know there are bigger issues on the stage than identity politics, but you can't tell me you don't understand why Tulsi Gabbard would be upset about identity politics, because it's the same reasons you gave for why Dave Rubin. You're like, I understand why Dave Rubin would be upset. He goes to colleges and people, you know, think he's this or that, and but why is Tulsi against identity politics? And before I go any further, I would just like to point out, when I'm talking identity politics here, I'm saying blindly following somebody because they are in the same group as you. I'm not saying don't identify as a strong, passionate, whatever person you are. You know, like, please get with your culture, be proud of who you are. Absolutely. I'm not trying to say don't do that. I'm trying to say that there are MFers in this world that will take advantage of people who are proud for being a whatever you happen to identify as. And they will say that if you're like that, you have to hate this person because this person said this thing that you need to be offended by. And sometimes, you know, it's true. Sometimes people are, you know, just really nasty and they deserve to be canceled. But the fact of the matter is, identity politics is really getting in the way of us actually having open discourse. And Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being affected by this really heavily, Tim. I mean, let's look at this. We're all being called Russian troll bots, and she's being associated with the identity of being a, you know, right-wing authoritarian, right? Like, she is actively struggling against this identity politic nonsense. And yeah, she doesn't think it's the biggest issue in America. I don't think it's the biggest issue in America. You don't think it's the biggest issue in America. Rubin might think it's the biggest issue in America. Tulsi agrees it's an important issue. You're, again, getting really upset with the detailed words that she used when she's trying to express a very clear intent. And that intent is that this divisive media echo chamber nonsense is making it harder for people to listen to each other and easier for people to have phobias and other each other. And on top of that, it is affecting her campaign pretty dang directly, dude. And then you go off on her. You start, I don't remember exactly what you did, but you were talking about gay wedding cakes, you were talking about this and that. And you know what? Tulsi already gets enough flack amongst the gay community when they don't know that she's, as, you know, lesbian friend she would take a bullet for in her unit. Like, I don't get it, Tim. Like, you gave them a lot of ammo there to just start talking bad about Tulsi Gabbard, making all these connections that you know she doesn't have, but at the same time that other people will love to take you out of context for. And I don't know, Tim, like, as political pundits, it's kind of our duty to be responsible for the things we say and how we say them, and for not just going off on someone because they say something that immediately, you know, upsets us and gives us a gut response to. Tim, it's funny because you talk about these identity politic problems like when it wasn't a problem because when the primary identity was white, or the fact that you were identified the way that you were and thought you had to be who you didn't end up becoming and you had to transcend this. You are actually advocating against identity politicking, but simultaneously you somehow seem to be upset at Tulsi Gabbard for doing the same thing. I mean, she is actively trying to promote ending things like Islamophobia and othering people and bringing people together. It's so not her, but the way you represented her, it made it feel like, you know, like the gay community might have a reason to actually dislike her, which they absolutely do not, because she hasn't been anything phobic for over a decade. There are lesbians in her unit she would take a bullet for. And I'm sure you know that. I'm speaking to the masses on this one. But the thing is, not everyone does know that. Some people believe the nonsense. I can't tell you how many gay friends are on my Twitter. My girlfriend has a bunch of gay friends. Like, they're all for Tulsi Gabbard because she's killing it. I mean, it is much better to have someone who used to have a wrong view, transcended that, and is now a compassionate person than someone who just has always claimed to have the right view, but really doesn't do much to champion the rights of those particular people. But that was a tangent. Anyway, Joe Biden thing. And I understand the way you covered it, the way you did, because honestly, it wasn't a very politically savvy move on her part. But fact of the matter is, you keep saying, Tulsi, you gotta stop repping Joe Biden. She never repped Joe Biden. She hasn't once defended Joe Biden. She is attacking. She's pointing out that Kamala Harris is being incredibly divisive, combative, and trying to score free political points. And she defended Joe Biden, even though it was politically one of the worst moves you could make, because it was the right thing to do, Tim. Because it doesn't matter who is being bullied. Tulsi's going to step up and say, hey, you're being a dick. Let's spread the assertive aloha here. And, you know, it wasn't like she was trying to defend Joe Biden for being a racist. She was trying to call out Kamala Harris for being divisive and, kind of a hypocrite. And I didn't really like that coverage of yours, but you know what? I let it slide. And then we get to this Dave Rubin thing, and Tim, come on, my dude. If we make this Medicare for All system effective, and I'm going to call it Medicare for All because it is medical care for all, it's getting everybody covered. You can use whatever terms you like, Tim, but just because Tulsi has defined it slightly differently, it doesn't mean that she's trying to capitalize on Bernie's name for the She made a mistake. She's now calling it healthcare for all. What a monster! She flip-flops oh so much. Oh so much. This is the third time I've seen rounds of headlines of them talking about how Tulsi Gabbard is such a flip-flopper on Medicare for all. She's had the same consistent policy for her entire campaign. And I think you do know that, Tim. I think you have pointed that out. But the way you covered it really made it sound like she's been pulling the wool over our eyes for the last 4 months. And I'm just keeping it real, guys. You're not, Tim. You're really not. If you were keeping it real, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. I got some notes, so I'll be right back. All right, now, Tim, I've got some notes on your Dave Rubin interview commentary. First of all, you make a comment that Tulsi was clearly pandering to her audience on that one. And I'm sorry, but I don't see it. In an hour and a half of that interview, she talked just like she does in every other interview. I only afterwards discovered that Dave Rubin was a right-wing, crazy, whoever the heck he is. I don't watch Dave Rubin. I'm not familiar with Dave Rubin, but a lot of people were really upset that Tulsi went on Dave Rubin's show and she was talking about identity politics on it and pandering to her audience, to his audience or whatever. It's like, Tim, she's being Tulsi Gabbard. She's telling like it is, just like she does every single time. And after that video, there was this ad talking about safe spaces and how they're being used to limit our discourse in colleges, and how, you know, at a certain point you need to be able to actually stand up for and defend what you believe and not just say, I believe it, nah. And, you know, I thought that was pretty ironic and really relevant because, quite frankly, that is the struggle that America is facing right now, is that people are unwilling to listen to anyone who doesn't agree with, doesn't believe what their identity group believes and agrees with. And I'm not trying to say all people. There are definitely open-minded people everywhere who are, you know, compassionate and willing to listen to people who even, like, actively offend them because they're looking for the, you know, the substance of their content and actually trying to figure out what someone who might offend them believes. And, you know, that's a pretty healthy mental practice because that's how you understand what your competition is. That's how you understand what your fellow man is thinking. And that's how you try to come to a, you know, agreement that the most people can all agree with, how you can take everyone's opinion into account without altering your, you know, nuanced and correct opinion on things. And I appreciate that Tulsi Gabbard does that, and I try to do that too. And Tim, it feels quite a bit like you are seeing something that upsets you, making comment about it, and completely ignoring the evidence and content. And now I understand Medicare for all, making it such that the MFers in Congress have to be on the same insurance as everybody else, is important to you because it's the only way it'll get properly funded, blah, 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 whatever. It's not necessarily true because the MFers in Congress, they make $2 million taking a bribe to keep us on pills and have to pay, you know, $15,000 to go on a vacation to Mexico to get their kids' cancer cured, they're still going to do that and keep selling us pills, because $2 million makes you a heck of a lot more, and a trip to Mexico, sounds kind of nice. You can't ensure that just because they're on it, it's still going to get funded better. You can't ensure that just because they're not on it, it won't be funded well. And now we get to this Medicare for All thing, where I've watched 4 or 5 different YouTubers very clearly specify this thing. More importantly, she hasn't changed her policy. Her policy has been very consistent, and she is for Medicare for all, making sure nobody goes into a hospital and goes broke for it, making sure that everybody's covered even if they just lost their job. That is Medicare for all, is it not? The issue is, she's not Bernie Sanders. That's your problem. And no, she's not. She is her own person. And if you listen to her, she just wrote an article about what her plan is, and you compare it to a documentary on MSNBC about the Canadian healthcare system, you could literally take word for word this guy discussing his healthcare system and put it into that bill. This is what Tulsi is advocating. So it is a universal healthcare system to make sure everybody's covered. But the difference is, Tulsi's plan doesn't cut unions, doesn't cut military insurance. If you like the insurance you have, because some people might, or if you have a union that wants to negotiate for better insurance than what the is generally being offered, maybe because people get hurt a lot on the job, or who knows, making it illegal for anyone else to negotiate on behalf of the people besides the government seems like authoritarianism to me. And some people are going to say I'm taking right-wing talking points, talking about taking away, or blah, 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 blah. Fact of the matter is, let's get this. Who is going to be implementing this Medicare for all policy? Congress. And generally speaking, what we're not talking about when we talk about healthcare is how we promote, repetitive treatments, daily and weekly pills, things like that, over single-use cures that you can sell to a hospital or a doctor once, and then they use that machine to cure everybody. Those sorts of things are generally not covered, not considered medicine, whatever. And quite frankly, we know that they like to mess with us and make some things covered and some things not. In Canada, they have private insurance. In anywhere, Tulsi said it many times, every universal healthcare country that has universal healthcare has some form of private insurance, has some role for them, because there are going to be things that aren't covered and there are going to be things that want those things covered. Doesn't mean she doesn't support Medicare for all, Tim. And that's 3 strikes. I really like you, dude. You do some great coverage of stuff, but man, you box. You're in your box, and I don't know if that's intentional or not, but this is the 3rd time, even though you say you support Tulsi Gabbard, where you've really given her the short end of the stick, and it wouldn't take any amount of investigatory, even just some critical thinking, I'm not trying to say that you don't think critically, I'm just saying, like, maybe you haven't actually thought these things through very much before you start talking about them, because you just get upset because of what you hear. And I get that, man, I get that. But, this is our job as independent journalists, being a voice for our candidates. And yeah, I'm new to this thing, but you know what? I'm trying here, man. We need to be careful because we influence public opinion. And, I'm not trying to say don't keep it real. Absolutely. But do your research first, man, and don't give biased, slanted reporting, on a more nuanced issue. With the Joe Biden thing, man, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I watched that video, a week after it happened, and I was like, I can't believe someone has such a different opinion from how I felt on that, because I saw firsthand the way she was calling out Kamala Harris for being divisive, for trying to score cheap political points, when she, in fact, supported a lot of the same things she's calling Joe Biden out on, and she's a horrible record on it. Tulsi was not trying to say, let's support Joe Biden and racists. Tulsi was trying to say that Kamala was being divisive, and she was calling out the school bully. That's what she was doing. And, it's readily apparent on Twitter. It was readily apparent on YouTube, on Facebook, like, on all the different media. I saw it buzzing through, and I was like, damn, I need to call this out, because that's one of the bravest things I've ever done. Because there's no Joe Biden supporters that are jumping on the Tulsi train, because nobody who's a Joe Biden supporter, head in the sand, they're not going to hear about Tulsi. She wasn't gaining any, it wasn't for political points. She wasn't trying to, gain favor with, Joe Biden supporters who watch Tulsi Gabbard. No, they don't exist. That was purely a humanitarian, non-divisive, guys, let's stop taking cheap pot shots and start talking about real issues thing that Tulsi has been championing from day one. And Tim, that is 3 strikes, my man. I'm sorry, I hate to call you out. I hate to say it because I do love your show. But I really need you to correct the record on these things because, you're at this point, you are deluding and misleading people. And since this is the 3rd time that the mainstream article, whatever, mongers have tried to, call Tulsi out for flip-flopping on a position that hasn't changed for the entirety of her campaign. I need you to be the voice of truth on this one, Tim. Correct the record, because that's not so cool, dude. And you know, Tim, 3 strikes in bowling may make you a turkey, but I'm a baseball man myself, and 3 strikes, you're out. But I don't believe in cancel culture. I'm not trying to say, you better do this or else. I'm just saying, Tim, you've done this 3 times. That establishes a pattern. And this most recent one makes you quite literally fake news by definition. You're presenting a fake story that is not news. And I don't want to have to go around saying that Tim Black's fake news. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep watching your show regardless. But I'm going to be disappointed in your character if you don't correct the record on this one, dude. It's kind of important. Kind of trying to save the planet here. I don't know what's in your head, but like Tulsi Burn are kind of on the same side here. Are you? Cool, dude. All right. Love you, man. Keep doing good work. Catch you later.